Imagine walking around Beverly Hills, looking for a successful woman to interview about her relationship with money. You've got your camera. You've got your questions. You're confident. You think this is going to be easy, because Beverly Hills is full of successful women, right? Here's what actually happens. The wealthy woman sees you coming and crosses to the other side of Rodeo Drive. You try again. Another one waves you off without even slowing down. A third gives you the kind of smile that says, "Honey, I don't talk about my money with strangers." And the average woman standing nearby, the one who doesn't have the wealth yet, she also avoids you. Because she doesn't want to admit she hasn't figured it out either. Both ends of the financial spectrum. Same result. Nobody's talking. And that silence? That is exactly the problem. Because somewhere in that gap between what wealthy women know and what average women are never told is everything. So today, that's where we're going. Not to the surface. Not to the highlight reel. We're going inside the psychology, the habits, the invisible behaviors that separate women who build generational wealth from women who stay financially stuck, sometimes for decades, even with a good income. This isn't about who earns more. This is about who thinks differently. Picture yourself 10 years from now. Not the version of you scrolling through Instagram watching someone else's vacation. The version of you who made a different set of decisions. The version who quietly, consistently, almost invisibly did a handful of things that compounded over time until freedom wasn't a dream anymore. It was just a Tuesday. No alarm clock desperation. No, I can't afford that embarrassment. No waiting for someone to save you financially. Just options. Real ones. Now, ask yourself, what did that version of you know that the current version hasn't been told yet? That's exactly what this is about. Here's the belief most women carry into adulthood without ever questioning it. If I earn more, everything will get easier. It sounds logical. It sounds almost obvious. And for a while, it actually feels true. You get the raise. You get the promotion. You upgrade the apartment. The car gets a little nicer. The vacations get a little longer. Life looks better. But then something strange happens. The stress doesn't leave. The feeling of financial uncertainty doesn't go away. In fact, for a lot of women, the more they earn, the more sophisticated their financial anxiety becomes. Because now the stakes feel higher. Now there's more to lose. Wealthy women discovered something that almost nobody teaches out loud. Income is not the foundation of wealth. Behavior is. And the behaviors that build long-term wealth are not the ones most women are watching on social media, reading in magazines, or being told by the people around them. They are quieter, less glamorous, almost boring to look at from the outside. But from the inside, they are completely life-changing. Let's talk about the woman who figured this out. Her name is Michelle. She's 34, lives in Austin, Texas, and from the outside, her life looks completely unremarkable. She drives a 2019 Honda CR-V. She has a practical apartment in a nice, but not flashy neighborhood. She buys her groceries on a budget, packs her lunch more days than not, and has never once posted a photo of herself at a luxury resort. She is not, by any Instagram standard, what most people would call wealthy. But Michelle has a net worth that would make most women her age quietly rearrange their opinions of her. She has no credit card debt. She has a fully funded emergency account. She has investments that work while she sleeps. And she has something rarer than all of that combined. The psychological freedom that comes from knowing her financial life is built on a foundation that nobody can pull out from under her. Michelle didn't inherit money. She didn't marry into it. She didn't stumble into a viral business idea. She simply, over the course of about 8 years, built the habits that wealthy women build. And she started when she was still broke enough that the habits felt almost insulting to practice. That's where the real story begins. This is uncomfortable to say out loud, but someone has to. There is a version of financial success that is entirely cosmetic. The designer bag. The luxury condo. The girl's trip to Tulum that gets posted in 4 different Instagram grids. The outward display of wealth that costs money to maintain and builds nothing underneath it. And there is a version of financial success that is almost invisible from the outside. Wealthy women, the ones who build long-term wealth rather than long-term appearances, understand this distinction at a cellular level. Not because they are boring, not because they don't enjoy nice things, but because they have done the math on what looking rich actually costs. There's a psychological term for what's happening when we prioritize the appearance of wealth over actual wealth. It's called status maintenance spending. And it is, for a lot of women, the single biggest invisible drain on their financial potential. The brand new car that costs $800 a month. The apartment in the right neighborhood that eats 40% of the paycheck. The wardrobe that has to be refreshed every season to stay current. None of that builds wealth. All of it builds an audience. And here's the twist that nobody talks about at the dinner table. Wealthy women are often the ones who look the least wealthy in their early years, because they are too busy actually building to perform the performance. Michelle, our woman in Austin, drove a 2019 Honda for a reason. Not because she couldn't eventually upgrade. Because every dollar she wasn't spending on status was a dollar building her actual future. There is a version of spending money that drains you. And there is a version of spending money that returns more than it costs. Wealthy women are obsessive, sometimes quietly obsessive, about the second category. This is not just about stock market investments, though that matters too. It is about a mindset that asks one question before almost every major financial decision. Does this make me more valuable, more capable, or does it just make me feel better for a weekend? The woman who spends $2,000 on a course that teaches her a skill that earns her $20,000 more per year made an investment. The woman who spends $2,000 on a vacation she'll scroll through once and never revisit emotionally, she made a purchase. Both feel good in the moment. Only one compounds over time. Here is where the psychology gets genuinely fascinating. Most women are never taught to think of themselves as an asset. They are taught to work hard, earn their salary, and spend responsibly. But wealthy women think about their own earning power, their skills, their network, their credibility, as something that can be grown intentionally over time. They hire coaches. They join rooms that cost something to be in. They read books that don't have obvious immediate payoffs. They build relationships before they need them. And they do all of this because they understand that the most reliable investment vehicle any woman has access to is herself. That is not motivational poster language. That is a strategy. If you're interested in the psychology behind wealth, financial habits, and the decisions women make that nobody ever talks about openly, subscribe to the channel. We uncover the hidden behaviors shaping women's financial lives so you can actually use them. This is where the conversation gets a little uncomfortable, and also a lot more interesting. Most women have an emotional relationship with money that runs them, rather than the other way around. Money arrives, and they feel relief. Money leaves, and they feel guilt. Money disappears unexpectedly, and they feel panic. Someone around them has more money, and they feel inadequate. Someone has less, and they feel briefly superior, then guilty about that too. This is exhausting. And it is extremely common. Wealthy women, the ones who hold their wealth over time rather than cycling through it, have done something specific about their emotional relationship with money. They have separated their self-worth from their net worth. This sounds simple. It is genuinely one of the hardest psychological shifts a person can make. Because we live in a culture that constantly, relentlessly, sometimes subtly and sometimes not subtly at all, attaches human value to financial status. The neighborhood you live in, the car in your driveway, the school your children attend, the restaurant you can afford without looking at the right side of the menu first. Women absorb these signals from childhood. And they build a belief system around money that is more about identity and belonging than about actual financial strategy. Dr. Brad Klontz, a financial psychologist who has spent years studying money behavior, has a name for the patterns that keep people financially stuck: money scripts. These are unconscious beliefs we carry about what money means, who deserves it, whether we're allowed to have it, and what it says about us if we do. And here's the one that shows up most powerfully in women: the belief that wanting money, really wanting it, strategically pursuing it, is somehow unfeminine, or selfish, or incompatible with being a good person. Wealthy women, at some point, had to consciously reject that belief. They had to decide that building financial security was not a character flaw. And that decision changed everything. Here's the thing nobody tells you about wealthy women. The money didn't actually change their lives the way they thought it would. It changed something else entirely. When Michelle crossed the threshold of genuine financial security, she expected to feel powerful in the ways the culture tells you money makes you powerful. She expected to feel free from worry. She expected to feel, finally, like she had arrived somewhere. And she did feel those things. For a while. But the more surprising transformation was this. Her relationships changed completely. Not because she became a different person. Because she could finally see which relationships had been held together by financial dependency, obligation, or the fear of being alone if she wasn't useful. She realized she had stayed in a long-term relationship 2 years longer than she should have, in part because leaving felt financially impossible. She realized she had said yes to social obligations she didn't want to attend because she didn't feel confident enough in her own life to say no. She realized that some of the people who had always been around were there because of what she provided, not because of who she was. Financial independence, real financial independence, is a truth serum for relationships. And nobody talks about this part, because we talk about wealth as if it is purely additive. As if it simply adds more good things to your life, without rearranging the existing ones. But wealth rearranges everything. And for some women, that rearrangement is the most disorienting part of the whole journey. The money wasn't the biggest transformation. Who you become while building the money is. There is a specific kind of embarrassment that lives in not knowing something you feel like you should already know. Most women carry financial embarrassment quietly. They nod along in conversations about investing when they have no idea what the words mean. They sign documents they haven't fully understood because asking feels like revealing something they should have already figured out. They avoid their account balances during stressful weeks because looking feels worse than not knowing. Wealthy women did something radical. They got comfortable with not knowing. And then they changed that. This is not about intelligence. It is about permission. Permission to be a beginner. Permission to ask the basic question in the room full of people who seem like they already know. Permission to spend the Saturday watching videos about compound interest instead of doing something that looks more impressive. There is a woman named Tanya. She grew up in a household where money was never discussed because discussing it meant acknowledging how little there was. She went into her adult life completely financially illiterate, not because she was careless, but because no one had ever given her a map. At 28, she was earning $65,000 a year and had nothing to show for it. She started with one book, then one podcast, then one conversation with a financial planner who didn't make her feel small for asking what a Roth IRA was. By 40, Tanya had built a financial life that put her in the top tier of her age group. Not because she suddenly earned dramatically more, because she stopped being ashamed of what she didn't know and started being relentless about changing that. Knowledge compounds exactly the same way money does. This is the one that separates the women who build real wealth from the women who have really good months. Short-term thinking is not a character flaw. It is a natural human tendency wired into the brain by thousands of years of evolution. We feel the pain of spending money today far more vividly than we feel the benefit of the money we'll have 20 years from now. That's just neuroscience. But wealthy women have trained themselves to override this instinct in specific, targeted ways. They set up automatic investment transfers not because it's fun, but because they know their in-the-moment self will spend the money if it sits in checking. They make financial decisions by asking what their future self will think, not what their current mood prefers. They delay purchases that don't align with where they want to be, not because they're cheap, but because they're playing a longer game than the one being advertised to them. Here's what a decade of consistent habits actually looks like. A woman who invests $400 a month starting at 30 and earns a modest average annual return doesn't just have more money at 60. She has a completely different life trajectory. She has the option to stop working years before most people expect to. She has the ability to make career decisions based on what she wants rather than what she needs to survive. She has the freedom to leave situations that don't serve her without financial desperation forcing her to stay. $350 a month. That is not a lottery win. That is not a windfall. That is a decision made consistently over time. And it produces results that look almost miraculous from the outside and are deeply mathematical from the inside. By this point in the conversation, it's worth stepping back from the habits themselves and looking at what they're actually constructing. Because wealthy women aren't just building money. They are building a specific kind of power. Not power over other people. Power over their own lives. The power to choose their partner based on love rather than economic necessity. The power to leave a job that diminishes them without a year of financial panic first. The power to take a risk on a business idea without betting their entire survival on it. The power to say no to things that don't serve them without guilt or consequence. The power to be generous without resentment. That is what money, real money, built the right way over time, actually produces. And it is so different from the narrative most women have been sold about what financial success is supposed to look like. We've been sold the image, the penthouse, the closet, the vacation, the reveal. But the women who have actually built something substantial, most of them will tell you the real treasure was never the stuff. It was the options, the quiet, enormous, life-altering power of being someone who is not financially desperate. Here's the last thing. The thing that ties all of this together. Wealthy women are not a different species. They are not gifted with special financial genes. They did not all come from money, or marry it, or stumble into it. Many of them started exactly where you are right now. Some of them started with considerably less. What they have is not a secret formula. What they have is a specific relationship with money that was built intentionally over time. They decided that money was a tool worth understanding rather than a source of anxiety worth avoiding. They decided that building wealth was not incompatible with being a good woman, a generous woman, a whole woman. They decided that their own financial security was worth prioritizing, even when that felt unfamiliar or uncomfortable or slightly at odds with what everyone around them was doing. And then they simply kept deciding that, day after day, month after month, year after year. The habits are not the hard part. The habits are actually quite learnable. The hard part is giving yourself permission to care about your own financial life as much as you care about everything and everyone else. The hard part is deciding that you are worth building for. And if you've watched this far, if you sat with this conversation for the last several minutes, there's a good chance you already know that. There's a good chance something in you has been trying to decide this for a while. So decide it. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly, the way wealthy women do most things. Make the first small decision. Then make it again tomorrow. Because the most powerful thing about the women who build extraordinary financial lives is not the amount in their account. It's that they never stopped believing they deserved to be building one. That belief is where all of it starts. And it's been inside you this entire time.